Okay, start please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Brenda Taga. I am the project coordinator manager for LPG in the Office of the Honorable Minister of State, Petroleum Resources in Nigeria.
Start please.
I'm here joining the H.
Hello, everyone.
I'm Brenda Taga. I am the project coordinator manager for LPG, Office of the Honorable Minister of State, Petroleum Resources in Nigeria. I'm here joining this conference. I basically will be speaking about the future of gas, potentials in gas, going forward post-COVID-19. As we all know, the ongoing pandemic has profoundly affected how business is transacted globally. It hit the world harder than any event since World War II. That's the magnitude of its effect on the economies of the world. Therefore, the pandemic will have a lasting impact on all spheres of businesses, especially in the energy industry. And that impact today has not really been completely scoped to understand what that would be. I mean, it's shaking the commodities business. It's shaking economies that have been largely driven by hydrocarbon trading alone. So economies that weren't centered on value addition to their hydrocarbons, and economies that failed to create additional benefits to the hydrocarbons have largely been affected by this COVID situation. In Africa, what's the landscape that we see with COVID? The coronavirus has exposed the vulnerabilities of the African economies. We find that a lot of economies are not resilient to, such global scale issues as this sort of pandemic. What we've seen in Africa is that a lot of countries have been shaken, and the forecast for Africa just shows that there's going to be a massive decline in our potential growth. Prior to the pandemic, the 2020 growth for Africa was at circa 3.8%, but with the onset of the pandemic, growth has declined, or growth forecasts have declined to 1.8%, which is really, really poor for Africa, considering the fact that we're in a continent where about 65% of the working age group is unemployed at the moment. So this impact has triggered quite a bit for the African economies, especially in the energy space, declining economic activity for countries that are reliant on importation. And it's led to a lot of gaps in countries' plans and public investments for infrastructure. This has also created loss across Africa. Nigeria, for one, we've seen a depreciation in our currency value, and the struggle is ongoing with countries in this regard. Well, history does show that pandemics of this nature, we had the 1891 pandemic, also leads to a lot of innovation in addition to the problems that it causes. It accelerates growth, it accelerates structural changes, and that's what we want to see in the gas space for Africa as well. The ultimate impact of the COVID-19 pandemic will really depend on how the African continent comes together and utilizes its inherent resource to chart a new pathway for itself. So what are the prospects for Africa using gas to steer this pathway going forward? We're in a continent that has the fastest growing and the largest population, the youngest population in the world. By 2023, we are poised to take over China and India in terms of population growth. And we all know that the human capacity is a great resource. In Africa, we've got 22 countries that are with proven reserves. And when we put that together, they contribute 40% of the global reserves in gas. Imagine that potential sitting in Africa, but most of this has not been utilized within the continent. Most of it has been utilized, has been on a short-term hydrocarbon trading basis. What I mean by that is most countries develop their assets and export it to the West, where it's further processed, giving further value, and none of those benefits come into the continent. So at this time, it's important that Africa begins to look at the inherent benefits to adding additional value to its hydrocarbons, especially in the space of gas. According to IEA, the future for gas on the continent, could take a really different turn with this sort of significant discoveries sitting in Africa. And the deficit that I've mentioned in terms of adding additional value to the gas makes Africa ideal and makes gas ideal as an essential muscle required to fight the COVID-19 or COVID-19 blues. I mean, to fight for growth in the future, gas is actually at the center of it. Therefore, we have a lot of conversations ongoing in Africa right now, energy conversations about gas being a center. The pandemic, as I said, has heightened the awareness on how gas is perceived and what gas can do. Gas being a major source of energy for multiple uses. Gas transcends a lot of different spectrums, from power generation to industrialization, transportation. These are all key components of really developing an indigenous energy and industrialization play for Africa. This potential pathways is very important for African countries to jump on the bandwagon and reduce its dependence on a commodity-driven economy. So what are the potentials for Africa post-COVID? I find that this period gives Africa a window to move away from its traditional fossil fuels and really build a segment that would leave the continent better off in terms of employment, in terms of human capacity development, transfer of technology, sustainable energy as well, and meeting all those goals. Gas really brings that sort of outlook for the continent. It's a unique opportunity to support the rapid industrialization of the continent. And the truth is, without industrialization, there is no growth. Gas will create this tremendous opportunity for Africa. So I find that there are many opportunities that span this segment, power generation being one of them. Domestic gas power in Africa is only at 25%. Imagine that. We are lacking in a lot of electricity in Africa. a few of the Western organizations have clamored for solar, but we're sitting on resource that adds more benefits than just the renewable energy. With solar, with gas, there's job creation from the production end to the distribution, as well as job creation for in the consumer brackets using gas for electricity. I will give you an example. Ghana has commenced earnest adoption of gas-powered energy, gas-powered electricity in the country, and it's investing significantly in this regard. The projects in Tema not only cost quite a bit in investment, but has also created jobs circa 2,000 to 5,000 jobs just from this singular power project. We're looking at Nigeria as well. Even though we do not have all-powered electricity right now, electricity is powered by hydro or gas. Most of it is by gas. We have seen that gas is the center of, industrialization, and have taken on capital projects such as the Ajaokuta Kaduna Kano pipeline. It's called the AKK pipeline. We flagged that off recently in the middle of the COVID, understanding how central gas is to our future, how central gas is to industrialization. And this pipeline project for gas takes pipeline from the south of the country to the north, which has been, which has had a gap with gas supply for many years. This project is, and this is just a short piece of the project. The project also transcends Nigeria into the Algerian pipeline and into Morocco as well. And this is really what we want to see Africa do in the future because of the potentials that come along setting up of the pipelines. In the transportation space, Africa has a rapidly growing middle class that's and an unfortunate poor public transport system. So it puts a lot of cars on the roads. And what we've seen is people consistently buy cars. Living in Nigeria, we know that one household potentially has, a minimum of 2 cars. So what we find is with the population growth in Africa, we're going to see more vehicles on the road, more carbon emissions if there's no transfer to cleaner energies. So the introduction of NGVs, the natural gas vehicles in Africa, after the pandemic comes at the right time. My example is in Nigeria as well. We've taken on the position not to continue to subsidize because we have this alternative energy to support our economy and stop making our economy gasoline dependent, which is high in carbon emissions and NOx emissions. And we are championing a switching program from your traditional fossil fuels for cars to your natural gas fuels for cars. We're talking about compressed natural gas here for mid-range to heavy-duty cars. We're also particular about the heavy-duty cars as well, using LNG for those vehicles. We are also looking at LPG for vehicles. The point is to create multi-fuels options for people, considering the fact that gas is much cheaper. And with the introduction of this in the gas spectrum, transportation spectrum alone, we are targeting about 50,000 jobs to be created from just the introduction of the different streams of gas in the use in transportation use in Nigeria. Other countries have started as well. Egypt just announced 2 days ago that they would no longer support the importation of vehicles that are not gas powered. And I believe Nigeria will toe that same line. supporting indigenous businesses and manufacturing. Egypt is going to manufacture all the components for gas conversion in the country. Most of its components to support the auto gas transportation segment is already inbuilt. So they're creating a strong and resilient economy around that segment, and they've got the gas available. It's only natural to do that. We believe other countries, once Egypt converts, Nigeria converts, these are the biggest transportation markets in Africa. Tanzania is converting a bit using LPG. We understand the limitations because there isn't natural gas in their country. But it's still a step in the right direction. Sustainable energy, clean energy, less emissions in the country, environmental preservation. Gas enables us to meet those targets in the transportation segment. Let's talk about the household segment as well. There's huge cooking in Africa. The family sizes in the continent are quite a lot. I won't use this word enormous because we do have large family sizes, and most of it, from the last count, most people were still using biomass fuels to cook. By biomass, I mean firewood to cook. In sub-Saharan Africa, for instance, West Africa, we have found that our ratio, LPG to household ratio, is 1:5, which is quite poor. I understand where the decline in the penetration rate is, but Morocco has a really strong penetration rate of 1.1 family, LPG utilization to a family. So the potentials there in the LPG investment to steer our economy is right there. Because with LPG, you find that in the household segment, you not only create jobs from the retailing side of it, there's the processing side of the LPG, there's the storage, there's the bottling of the cylinders if there's no reticulation. And there's a lot of adoption to technology in that space as well. Kenya is adopting a lot of technology in their bid to penetrate LPG within the country. And I find that quite remarkable. They've done quite well. The numbers are rising annually with over 10 to 20,000 people now using technology to support their ongoing purchase of gas, as well as replenishment of gas. So in the household segment with gas, primarily LPG, there is potential for Africa to really dig into that and use it as an economic tool to steer itself out of the post-COVID, out of the COVID pandemic. So in Nigeria, what we are looking at as well is to support the LPG adoption and as an economic tool. The country has just recently approved that plan under the NESEP program, which also includes LPG as a key stimulation plan to a post-COVID recovery. The actions on here is really, really, really simple. And they're more, the actions on here are really, really simple, and they're really focused on government interventions, because the truth is, without the right sort of policies put in place, it will be hard for these sort of interventions to really find a bearing in the continent. It's important that Africa quickly comes together under the Africa Trade program that has just been set up to support its implementation, reduce the logistics, reduce a requirement to go to the West, and create continental and regional trade within Africa. It's also important that the African countries adopt technology to build efficiency in this period. We find that in this period, it's really been a technology revolution, And technology just does help with cost savings. I spoke about Kenya using technology in their adoption of LPG. More initiatives like that will boost cost savings, create additional skilled jobs, because people have to be trained in this regard. And then back to policies, the design of the policies really need to support and accelerate the scale at which each government wants to use gas to support their industrialization. In Nigeria, we have a strategic roadmap, which we call the National Gas Policy 2017, that elucidates quite clearly what our objectives are, how we intend to go and attain that, and who is responsible in each sphere. If countries come out creating such strategic documents, it will help steer the country's economic recovery within this period, and make it very clear for investors to understand where exactly they fit in the matrix of the country's gas business. And that is it from me. I will take any questions now from the organizers. If there's anyone who wants any clarity on what I've spoken about, send the questions to me so I can respond to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brenda. It's very insightful. From a layman's point of view, what I get from what you're saying is that whilst we are panicking as citizens in Nigeria, wondering what we're going to do, they say nobody's going to use oil again. If you all over the UK, they're plugging battery power cars, and you can see charging points everywhere. So when you see that, you panic, because if our sole dependency is on petrol, crude oil to turn into petrol and diesel. So this is I think it's a form of comfort to know that gas is the future of Nigeria as it is, and what we can do. So thank you for shedding light on it. There's a lady on this session, she's a techpreneur, and I was happy when you said technology, because again, what we're trying to say is we're trying to develop, she's a female techpreneur. What we're trying to do is develop functions in Nigeria, create employment. So yes, oil might be declining, might not be able to sell petrol, which is obviously has been one of the largest employer of labor. If you look at the oil industry, the multinationals, the Shell, they all. So when you say oil is declining, obviously it brings fears into more unemployment. But now that there's something to look forward to in gas, and you say technology. So give me an idea of what sort of technology you think we might embrace in gas in Nigeria, or you said one is happening in Kenya.
Okay, so the example that I gave in Kenya is technology that supports. When we look at technology in the oil and gas industry, it's really to support the efficiency of what we're driving at to attain. So there are different types of technologies available right now, from the production end to, just the seismic reading. That has created one, save time. Time is money in oil and gas. Every single day costs money. It's saved a lot of resource safety issues as well, putting people at very dangerous positions who are engaging in these practices. So in the downstream segment, which I spoke about, which in Kenya, the technology supports the visibility and tracking of LPG utilization. What it does essentially is helps poor households pay on a day-to-day basis for their gas utilization. So the argument has been electricity is cheaper, but you need gas to power electricity. And by the time that cost comes to you, it's more expensive on the long run. So gas directly to the homes and paid on an ongoing basis, we like to use this term in Nigeria, pay as you go, is exactly what Kenya has adopted. And they use the pay as you go system quite well in Kenya. And we find that it helps the rapid penetration of gas within the country in Kenya.
Pretty much like the Western world, where you don't know how gas gets into your your appliances to just turn off your burner and there's gas and you can cook, but you pay your bills, or they also do pay as you go as well, because for the lower income, they have those cards that you can go and charge every month.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
today with household utilization, you get a bottle, you either fill your bottle fractionally, which is unsafe. So I take a full bottle of cylinder, 12 kg, to a filling plant, and I get it filled. That in itself is unsafe because of the pressure in the bottle. Ideally, you should fill your bottle at the safe filling levels, not fractionalize the filling of the bottles. So what Kenya has adopted is take the bottles on credit and pay as you utilize, which makes it easier for anyone who requires gas to cook to go and exchange their firewood for gas, because at the end of the day, you're still purchasing using the same system that you would have purchased firewood in piecemeals, fractionally. And this is even better because you purchase the entire quantity on credit and you pay as you utilize it in your home. And what that gives the distributor on the distributor end is the visibility on what usage is like. They can then project growth and map out new segments for better investment. Once there's more investment, there are more jobs and more people can earn to utilize that. So everything is really cyclical. It's not in little silos like we used to think before. There isn't that much disposable income. So when you're creating a development plan, you have to think end to end. One is, I have a large population that is not properly, we have a large population that do not earn the minimum income, that do not have disposable income. We saw what happened in Nigeria, 2 weeks of lockdown, and people were dying literally of hunger, So how do we ensure the affordability gaps are closed down? We need to raise the income strata of that group. And you only raise the income strata of that group by creating more jobs that are a little bit more skilled so that they can earn more. And these sort of initiatives give that opportunity, because you have people who are going house to house, installing the ultrasonic meters. You have people who are back end in the control rooms, monitoring utilization. You've got mobile money that's plugged in. Just imagine the potential of that. You've got maintenance, people who are trained to maintain the cylinders if there's a situation. So there's a different, spectrum for different levels of job creation within that value chain. And that's just from a simple thing as, an ultrasonic meter, just technology. So imagine the remit when you get into industrialization. We're talking about textiles, we're talking about chemicals for paints, we're talking about methanol for, cooking in that hospitality business. All of that is actually derived from gas. Even the solar panels from solar.
Gas.
It's all from gas. You require the resins from gas to produce plastics, and the solar panels are from gas. So Africa does have a potential right now. What we should be doing is using our gas, creating jobs here, and exporting the solar panels to the West, who have decided.
The world, since they are embracing more solar. So
yeah, they embrace more solar. So what we need to do is embrace our gas here and export it. That way, we're not import reliant. We've seen what import reliance does on our economies. The pandemic has really brought home a lot of issues that need to be tackled, and this is the right time, Africa, for us to tackle those issues.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for shedding light on the usage of gas to promote because looking at our story for the next 3-6 months is going to be the pandemic. It's centered around the pandemic, and it's all doom and gloom as it is now. But at least there's a ray of sunshine for Nigeria. So please, any questions before our speaker leaves? All right, please, can you try and interact with us on the Swapcard platform? Maybe some people might have some questions I would like to ask you. Ms. Brenda Taga works in the office of the Minister for State for Petroleum and can answer any questions that you have on gas, on how Nigeria can thrive in a post-pandemic area. Thank you very much, Brenda. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on here.
All right, thank you.